just talked about it, let's talk about your reading initiative. So what does that look like going into the school year?
Yeah, so we really have three different aspects of it. So number one, just to give some context here, what we've seen are our reading scores continue to drop. We're 48th in the country in fourth grade reading. And what we've seen is a lack of the reading of science being involved in our teacher trainings in our colleges of education, and then in a lot of the professional development around the state. So this is a very intentional strategy to ensure that not only the trainings are provided, but also the resources are provided for teachers and districts to ensure that we're teaching reading in the best way possible, and then setting up these cohorts across the state so that the professional development continues. So this isn't a one-time, here's the training, this is a continuous model. We've seen this in states like Mississippi, which had the biggest reading gains in the country. And so what we're doing is implementing that strategy statewide so that we can get our students back on track with reading, especially in those early grades.
So it's mainly focusing on the teachers and applying that instead of, I don't know, throwing more books into classrooms and saying hopefully they read it.
That's right, because and that's a big part of this too. Is teachers, their time now. We're getting back to school. They are flooded. They are really trying their best to get everything ready for the kids, everything ready for class every day. So it is the resources, but it's the training that goes with the resources and the continuous training. As you talk to teachers around the state, hey, they want to be better. They want to continue to grow, but we've got to make sure that what we're sending them to, the trainings we're providing for them, are the highest quality possible. And then we also have in here a way for parents to start being more involved and see what is going on with reading programs, with their kids' reading scores. So we're also launching some initiatives along the parent side as well to make sure that they can see exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about growth in reading, when we talk about reading proficiency. A lot of times, parents, they need to be involved and understand when we're talking about where your child is, we're talking about what we're working on in our schools. You can go home, and what we've seen are tremendous examples of when parents read with kids at home, when they help supplement a lot of these things going on in school, it means a lot to student success. So we're going to continue to make sure that in everything we're doing, the parents are very involved in that as well.
So for the professional development, in the past you've talked about using Hillsdale College, getting training from them. Is this training from them, or is this an out-of-state company? Who are they getting this from?
No, so this will be our own teachers. So what we will do is our teachers from the State Department of Education, we will go through the training with these teachers, and it's really a grow your own model. So our teachers will go through the training. And again, we've got a lot of teachers in the state who have gone through these letters trainings where they're really focused on the science of reading and the phonetics around that. And so what we will do is scale that up so that more teachers go through the training, but then secondfold, those teachers become the trainers. So it's a train-the-trainer model, and this allows us to continue to grow. So with this investment, we continue to have teachers that every time they step foot in a classroom, we want them to be as prepared as possible. This is a way to build that up and systematize it for every teacher that comes in the classroom.
Perfect. So just since I asked, you had talked about Hillsdale College and training. Is that something that we're going to implement this year?
So we're still working on the social studies standards and the professional development around that. So there's a lot of groups we've reached out to look at what other states are doing with this curriculum. We're looking at, do we need to add more to our standards? Do we need to provide professional developments? So we'll be making some announcements soon. We're not ready to make any announcement on that yet, but we are actively looking to see how do we bolster our U.S. history and civics. We had a national study came out this summer that showed, again, the nation's civics and U.S. history scores are at an all-time low. We've got to make sure that our kids have a great understanding of our history and of what made this country great, those founding principles. And so we are looking at ways to both provide trainings and more material for teachers to be able to do that.
I know Florida just came out with new curriculum from PragerU. Is that an option for us?
Yes, we have been talking. They're one of the folks we've been talking to. I have had conversations with PragerU to be able to do that. I work very closely with the DeSantis administration on what they're doing in education. Also, Arkansas and Sarah Huckabee Sanders' team as well. So the three of us have had a lot of conversations around how do we bolster our history to make sure that kids are getting that great American history in their classes. So those are two of the states I work very closely with. So we are actively in those communications right now.
There's been some opponents to PragerU, and I know that these are just talks.
Sure.
And we could go with Hillsdale, we could go with other potential talks too. But the American Historical Association says that PragerU downplays slavery, and then tribes have also come out against it, saying that they portray Native Americans as barbaric. Are you concerned about that, or are those the talks that you're having with DeSantis and Huckabee Sanders?
So, good question. So what we continue to do is, and by the way, I'm a fan of providing a lot of materials. We have been working on developing new tribal curriculum, where we've been working with the tribes on what they've developed and providing this to all classes. We've had talks with PragerU. We've had talks with these other groups as well to say, we want to provide for our teachers high quality curriculum and make sure that this is all being offered. So we're actively looking through that now. I mean, we're in the stages of figuring out what is the highest quality curriculum, how do we make it available, how do we give teachers access. One of the things that I've seen is teachers don't need to be out creating curriculum. I mean, this is, it is really onerous. It's really tedious work. If they want to, that's fine. But what we should do as a state is ensure that it's all available there at their fingertips where they can use these things, and that we as the State Department of Education are providing for them, hey, this is great curriculum. We've looked at it. It aligns with our standards. It's high quality. And so that's what we're going through now is looking at all these different curriculums and say, look, we think this is really valuable. We think this would be great used in the classroom. This one might not align with our standards. So, right now that is the active kind of course that we're going down is let's look at it all. Let's bring it in. Let's talk to them. Let's see if it actually lines up with what we need to be teaching in our classes.
When is that new kind of deadline that we're going to look at changing our standards? When will that happen?
Good question. So we have a standards team right now. We have the textbook committee that's looking through, and they go subject by subject. So history is up next year. So that's kind of where the alignment comes in of where these conversations are starting, but you'll see a much more aggressive approach as we get closer to that deadline. So right now, a lot of it is let's gather it, let's see what other states are doing, let's have these conversations, let's look at implementation in other states too, see if there were any issues there. And so that's kind of the process we're going through at the moment.
Perfect. That was great. So now to tax credits.
Yep.
That's something exciting for a lot of families this year. So what are your thoughts on that? And we're expecting a volume of people to apply for this. Do you think that the tax commission will be able to handle that?
Yes, that's what, we've been really clear with the tax commission of, hey, this is a top priority for the state of Oklahoma. We are going to provide more choice and more options for Oklahoma parents than they've ever had before. We want to ensure that parents are truly in the driver's seat of their kids' education and they can make these decisions. So that means everything needs to be ready to go for parents. So my administration has been in conversations with the tax commission to give them any kind of guidance, any kind of assistance they need. I'm fully confident in that, and we're going to make sure that everything's ready to go so that these parents can again make sure that their kids are in the best educational environment possible. It's exciting for the state. Parents will have more options and they'll have more power in their kids' education than ever before in Oklahoma. So it's a very exciting time for that to launch.
One other question on that is about how parents actually apply, because we haven't seen anything on the tax commission website yet.
Right. And I know they're working on that. I'm working on a rollout there of what it will look like, what the link will be, what the application process will be. And so again, I know that they want to make that as, it's a top priority for us to make it as easy as possible for parents to navigate. That's one of the things we've seen oftentimes. Right now we're in the stage of school about to start. You hear from a lot of parents about the enrollment process and how onerous it can be. What we want to do is make sure these are as smooth a transition as possible for a family that wants to see what their options are, maybe want to attend a new school. We need to continue to do that in the best way possible for parents to be able to enroll in a seamless way. So that is a top priority of our administration. We've communicated that to them, and I am confident that they will make sure that parents can easily navigate that.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Now on to FOIA requests. This is something that is talked about a lot, especially, internally here.
Sure.
And we have a few different ones that are still out that have gone unanswered for quite a while now, but we hear a lot about transparency, especially with the Governor Stitt's administration.
Sure.
So why aren't we getting those answered quickly and so we can effectively let people know what's going on in Oklahoma?
Sure. Yeah, my team, we are going to be the most transparent administration that the state's ever seen. We're going to continue to work towards that. We have had more FOIA requests in this short amount of time than we'd seen in previous administrations. So we're actively trying to ensure that we are doing our due diligence to get that information out the door. We try to do, I try to go around communities and talk and answer questions in town halls sit down with the media, try to get them all the information they need. And the volume has been high. And so we just continue to try to be as diligent as we can to get them the information. So I'm more than happy to check on any specific ones that you have, but we are doing the best we can to get that information out. We think it's key that your viewers, that Oklahomans can see what's going on. And when there's questions, we want to be very diligent in answering those questions and very, very open and very honest with taxpayers on where money's going, what we're doing, and what's going on in our administration.
Could it be your staff? Like, you're saying that you want to do all of this,
Yep.
but it hasn't you personally, yes, you're sitting down with us, but we send in these requests to your staff and then it goes unanswered. So could there be a problem in the link of why it's taking so long?
Well, look, so we fulfill dozens and dozens and dozens of FOIA requests. So we are actively getting FOIA requests responded to. When you're dealing with education, when you're dealing with kids, when you're dealing with personnel, a lot of these things go through legal to ensure that the information we're releasing, we've done everything on our end to not release information that have any kind of personal data, student information. So we have a process in the agency of when we get a FOIA request, legal goes over it, and that whole process to ensure that what we're doing, we want to release all the information possible. We also want to ensure that we are not disclosing information that could be legally you're not supposed to release. So especially in an agency that deals with student data, deals with student information, that's something we take very seriously as well. So we have a process in place. We continue to churn those out. We'll always be responsive to the media, to taxpayers, to make sure we get that information out.
You mentioned your town halls.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a lot of rallies,
Yeah.
not even just here, other places as well,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. So why is that?
Yeah. Oh, it's because here's what I believe on how we move the state forward in education. I believe we have to have an open conversation and a real honest one about where we are. Why are we so far behind in our educational outcomes? We've got to take an honest look at ourselves, and we've identified these things. Parents need to be more involved. We have to do things differently. We cannot continue to allow the teachers union to dominate what we're doing in education. That's where you've seen my administration say, we want merit pay for teachers. We want signing bonus for the best and brightest teachers. We are fought every step of the way by groups that want the status quo. Well, the status quo got us where we are. So how do you build on that vision? How do you build the state, the momentum moving forward? Well, I go out and talk to people. I go out and I talk to people that love these ideas. I go out and talk to people who don't love these ideas. I go out and talk to people who are somewhere in the middle and want to know more information. It's valuable for me to get the feedback from all groups. I love the interaction. I mean, Oklahomans are fantastic. They want to talk through these things. They want to see a path forward. And so this is how we bring folks together and how we build a coalition and move forward on a vision to improve Oklahoma education. So I try to actively be out in communities, have these conversations, talk to groups, and ensure that what I'm doing is moving the ball forward, and also letting people know these are why we're making these decisions. These are why you're seeing my administration do things that you've never seen before. This is why we're taking such a different approach. We have to do things differently to get education back on track, and we're going to continue to push for the change and reform needed to improve this education system for all kids.
We've heard people compare your rallies to a campaign trail. Is that something that is in the back of your head of what's next for you?
Oh, no, absolutely not. When you hear me out and talking to folks, I'm very honest. I'm very direct. Here's what I want to do. Here's where I see the problems. Let's have an open conversation about it. Tell me what you see. I do a lot of questions, that I ask and when I go out amongst the public of, okay, well, tell me what are your issues that you have with your district? What do you think are the biggest problems in Oklahoma education? Getting that feedback from parents has been invaluable. Going back 3 years from when I started campaigning, I just went out to different diners and different places around the state and said, talk to me. Well, what do you see? What do you think the problems are? And that was where I was able to develop, listen, I'm hearing the same key things along the campaign trail. I'm hearing people say, we're not focused on the basics anymore. When I was in school, we did math, we did reading, we drilled that home and we understood that. And then, you know what? We tried out different jobs. We were okay with getting kids into blue collar jobs early. And we feel like something's gone on in education that's taken it far off track. This is where I began to go, look, Oklahomans know. Oklahomans, when you ask them, when you talk to them, they know what's going on. They know what the problems are. And so that's where I just continue to go out. And again, I absolutely love talking to folks on, and again, and you have some folks, and you'll see it, when we're out, hey, that they have differences of opinion. Hey, I try to sit down with them as much as I can too. I took questions from a group that was, we're critical of some things for over an hour, and just said, hey, let's talk. Hey, I'll always shoot you straight. I'll always answer your questions. So let's have a conversation, and you tell me, where do you think we're wrong? What do you think we can do better? And so I think this is critical in improving education, and I am dedicated to making sure every kid has the best education possible. Well, we've got to have these conversations, and sometimes they're hard, but those conversations are the ones that are needed.
Yeah, we noticed that sometimes those situations can get volatile. We saw one in Tulsa where someone got spit on, there were charges. Now, even that space is kind of melding with your monthly meetings. Mm-hmm. We're seeing lots of people show up, people holding signs, even charges coming out of one of your meetings a couple months ago. So is your administration looking at how can we give a bigger space? How can we give people a safer environment? Are you guys looking at security? What are the solutions there to the problems that we've seen as you're trying
Sure.
to be transparent?
Yeah, we made changes for the last board meeting to ensure that we've got an orderly process on having folks come in, because the reality is, we want as many people to be involved as possible. I try to make sure, hey, I want as many people here. I want to listen to them. I want to have, these long public comment windows, because I want to hear from everyone. Give us the feedback. As a board, let's be really reflective on what we hear. And so again, we've seen numbers we've never seen before of folks being involved and coming to these board meetings. So we are actively looking at, could we provide a bigger space? Could we provide a little more organization for the folks coming in? And we made some changes before the last board meeting, but I also, announced in the board meeting that, hey, moving forward, you're going to hear additional announcements from us on how to make this much more available to even more people. Because again, I want people to be involved. I want these discussions to happen. And you mentioned this, people are passionate about education. You're talking about their kids. And so, that's something that I think that we have to hear from people is, what? When you are at the bottom in educational outcomes, and you're talking about people's kids, they're going, well, I'm pretty frustrated. Yeah, I want to see improvements. I want to see something happen to improve this. And so we try to make sure that we give them the ability to talk directly to our administration so that we can make the changes necessary. And for far too long, parents haven't been listened to.
But passion is different than attacks or
Yes.
crude behavior.
Yes.
Have you come out and said anything about trying to have orderly conduct
Sure.
at your rallies or at these meetings?
Yes, I've said that at every one of them. Of guys, we're all here. We're not hurrying off or anything, so everyone will have time to let their positions be heard. So let's respect the rights of everybody to speak up and share their opinions. And hey, strong opinions are welcomed. We want strong opinions from the entire spectrum. So let's make sure that we're able to do that. And I will tell you, we do have folks, especially these left-wing activists, that come in here and try to disrupt. And we say, listen, we're going to let you talk. Hey, tell us your opinion, but let's not be disruptive. Let's not try to infringe upon someone else's right to speak up. And again, this is how, part of what's made America great is the belief that every single person has these rights. Every single person has the right to free speech. So let's allow them to do so. Let's have the conversations. Strong disagreement, hey, that can sometimes bring you to a great solution. So let's have the conversation. Let's make sure that everyone's being heard here, and then we can make a decision based on that.
When do you think that we could possibly see a bigger space for those meetings?
Oh, I think pretty soon.
Pretty soon?
Yeah, we're working on that.
Is it the History Center that we're going to be moving to?
That's one of the options.
Okay.
That's
and
one of the
think
options.
Next month?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
I think we're close on some of this. We're just trying to make sure that out of the options, what's the easiest for people to access? What's the easiest for us to ensure, that there's order, that people know when I come here, this is what it's going to look like. Here, do we line up here? What is it? So that's all that we're trying to look at the logistics. And again, as you mentioned, we want to make sure everyone feels safe. We want to make sure that everyone feels that they know where they can go, that we have enough room. So we're looking at a few options. That is one of them. But yeah, we are looking at several options. So I feel confident we'll be making an announcement on that fairly soon. And we also want to make and the other thing is you want to make an announcement so people have enough time to know where they go, to be able to get the information. You don't want people going to the wrong place. So that's one of the things we're trying to actively ensure too, is these announcements on where board meetings are and at what time were made a year ago. So getting the word out, making sure everyone knows, hey, it's been moved, we want you here. How do we get information to you? So that'll be something we announce to make sure that people do know. We want you here. It's been moved here. So please come over here.